Okay, I think we can kick things off. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is John Levis. I lead the product marketing team here at LogRocket, and I'm really excited to be moderating this panel here today around analytics for great mobile experiences. So before we get started here, just a couple of housekeeping notes. First and foremost, we are recording this, so don't worry about having to jot down notes or anything like that. We will be sending out the recording within about 24 hours of this webinar. So keep your eyes peeled on your email for that to come through. In addition to that, we're doing a live Q&A at the end here. So if you have questions that pop up in the course of our discussion, please use the Q&A functionality at the bottom of your Zoom window to ask any questions that you may have, and we'll spend a few minutes at the end answering those. Okay, and with that, let's jump into it. We have three really great panelists here today. I will let them introduce themselves because I won't do it justice. So Alex, maybe we can start with you, just a little bit about your background and your current role.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started my career in consumer insights and research and focusing on customer experiences, which is kind of how mobile experiences surfaced in my sphere of awareness and influence. I then transitioned into product management, where I also had to manage some of those experiences in conjunction with desktop applications. And I've done both B2B and B2C solutions in mobile. And I'm now the VP of Product Management at Typeform. So really excited to have joined that organization and looking forward to this discussion.
Great, excited to have you. Mustafa, would you like to go next?
Of course, thanks for LogRocket team for involving me to this webinar. First of all, I have 23 years of work experience, and 15 years of it is in telecommunications company in Turkey. And I work in banking sector and manufacturing sectors also. Last 8 years, I was leading the UX team in the biggest telecommunication company in Turkcell in Turkey, and I am trying to align business parties and the IT parties in terms of strategy, service design, and experience design. And I joined Allianz Turkey last year. It's like almost 1 year as a product service design and UX design director, and I am trying to lead the product team in Allianz right now.
Great, awesome. And last but not least, certainly, Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda Shore. I'm a product manager at LogRocket, focused on session replay and our SDKs. I previously worked at a CRM software, and at LogRocket, mobile has been a big focus for us the past couple of years. We see a lot of opportunity in this space.
Great. All right, so I think we should start this discussion kind of at a high level. So what role do mobile and in turn sort of mobile user experiences play in your overall company strategies? Maybe Alex, will start with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I think when I think about mobile strategies, they're usually a little bit twofold, and I've seen this happen at both B2B and B2C companies. There's the things that customers would like to do, right? So they are on the go, they want to check certain things, they want to do certain things within that mobile experience. So I'm going to call that category customer driven. And then the other category is the things that the business would like for them to do through these experiences in whatever way that we want to manifest some of these elements. And I think both of those things need to be kind of considered cohesively and tied to business outcomes, right? Because self-service is something that I think a lot of organizations have tried to move towards, to remove the high touch engagement that certain customers are going to need through their evolution of using a particular product, and mobile experiences can help solve for some of those challenges. So I think that thinking through what are your business outcomes, connecting the things that customers want to be able to do with the things that you want them to be able to do as an organization, and thinking through what actually makes sense and is feasible to do through a smaller screen and isn't going to be a friction-filled experience. So those are kind of the elements that I would think about as I'm thinking through a mobile strategy. For me, at Typeform and previously at SurveyMonkey. Those are applications that serve the needs of organizations predominantly, in a business context where they have key business objectives they're trying to accomplish. And users probably won't use the mobile experience the entire way through in all instances, right? There's some things like programming a survey or a form that can be a little bit more challenging to do in a mobile experience unless it's really short and really simple than it would be on a desktop experience. And so for us, the challenge has really been, how can we create that delightful, seamless experience for those users and those customers to do the things that are reasonable for them to do and that they want to do within that mobile experience without trying to cram the entire desktop experience into that mobile flow and convoluting the whole process for them and giving them more friction than they're maybe prepared for or need to experience. So that's been kind of the core central tenet of how we think about the mobile strategy.
That's great. Yeah, and you kind of touched on a couple of things that I'm excited to explore a little bit later. So we'll save them for now, but definitely gonna revisit some of that stuff around, how do you figure out what stays on the web and what makes it to mobile and all that. I think is really interesting. Mustafa, what have you seen about the mobile strategy at Allianz?
I want to begin from my past company. It was telecommunication company, and we have lots of mobile apps related to lifestyle applications like music platforms, photo platforms, and storage platforms. And I manage like 65 people in more than 40 different platforms. Then I changed my sector, and insurance sector is very different than telecommunication sector. It's one thing is that insurance sector is a reactive sector. What I mean is you go to an insurance company after something happened bad to you. So it's not the lifestyle application. So you don't need it in your daily life. It's one of the different things in my sector is this one. And the other one is Turkish market is very young. Our population age average is 30 years. So I can say that we are early adapters to any platforms. And in millennials, they want it now. They want every service now, and when they need it, they want to reach every company in every sector. So our traditional insurance sector began to change its strategy from traditional channels like agencies to mobile and web strategies. So our mobile strategy is one of the biggest important strategy in our company right now. It's a global strategy also, and we pay more attention day after day, more attention to our mobile strategy. I can say in 2 to 5 years we will be mobile driven company from traditional agency perspective to mobile insurance company, and we are investing a lot about this sector and mobile experiences. I can say that.
Great. Yeah, I think that's super interesting because we have sort of two sides here, right? Alex, on your side, it's a lot of let's get people in, let's provide them with an experience that's going to really make them happy and want them to come back. And Mustafa, on your side, it's like, to an extent, people have to come in and do this experience, and that they're already probably not in a great spot if they're filing an insurance claim or something like that. And so you just want to make sure that they can get their jobs done as sort of smoothly and efficiently as possible. So I think it's cool to see that, like, two very different approaches, but experience still very much at the center there. So Mustafa, you kind of talked a little bit about, you think that 3 to 5 years mobile is really going to be at the heart of everything.
Yes.
What's the driver behind that, and like what do you credit as sort of the reason for that shift?
The touch point of our customers is changing. Traditional, they're making their insurances from agencies, but in last 2 years, it's shifting from traditional channels to mobile and web channels. That's why this approach force us to change our strategy. Why is it important? Because we saw these mobile channels as cost efficiency channels. In order to decrease our costs in a higher inflation environment, we have to decrease our costs. This is one of our facts in Turkey right now, maybe globally, but we have like 60% inflation rates in Turkey. It's our company perspective. In our user perspective, they want to follow every step about their claims, and in health insurance or in life insurance, they have to follow every steps in their life, and they want to reach and do their needs now. That's why our approach changed from traditional channels to mobile experiences, especially mobile experiences. Our customer base is increasing day after day, and we already penetrate like 25% of our customers mobile in mobile penetration rate is 25%. It's a huge change for us, and it's changed in 2 years, and following 2 years it will be more than 50 or 60%. That's why our mobile experiences is very important, because it began to generate revenue also, and our customer base is changing rapidly.
Yeah, that's great. Do you see customers, especially maybe new customers coming in, who, their mobile is how they interact with you, right? They don't really spend much time on the web, and they want to come in and just use the mobile app.
Definitely, that's why mobile first is our first strategy right now. They are maybe searching from web, but at the end they are finishing with your mobile app, because they want to see what you offer them, and they want to investigate what you are providing them. Not only for if they are not your customers, you have to provide something to tease them. So if you are not an user for us, we are trying to make features that will take new customers to our platform. I can say that.
Great. And Alex, have you seen a kind of a similar shift on your side to wanting to be mobile first?
Absolutely. I mean, I think mobile first design across the board has been an important kind of shift that a lot of SaaS-based tools are making. The added kind of element to that is that sometimes organizations have a bunch of different users, right? So there's the users who are creators, there's the users who are responders, potentially there are users who are consumers of the information and things like that. And each of those elements kind of necessitates reflecting on what kind of interaction suits that group most, right? Should they, log into a web-based application? Should there be a mobile app that they should engage with? What device are they using? What tools are they using? And how complex is their workflow? And sometimes that means that you're, trying to find parity between your web-based applications and just resizing them for different screens, essentially, that people might be using. And sometimes, it necessitates creating an app that they're going to log into and actually have access stored within that information. And sometimes it's, a completely different application that you're building just for them with a subset of tools or elements that allows them to get value out of the smaller subsets of experiences that they need to engage with. So I think that there's a lot of different variability, and the key to coming up with a comprehensive strategy is really understanding who is using those tools, what are they hoping to accomplish, and what elements of those experiences are the most valuable to them, so that you can prioritize those and make sure that there's limited friction within those.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear. Amanda, anything that you've seen from sort of LogRocket customers that you work with, like what are their trends around mobile and its sort of broader role in company strategy?
Yeah, I mean, when I talk to a lot of clients who are really trying to meet their customers where they are, as both Alex and Mustafa have touched on, we know that Americans now spend more time on mobile than on desktop. And according to Insider Intelligence, 88% of that time is spent in apps. And at the same time, users are increasingly impatient on mobile. Google has done some really interesting research on this. 30% of smartphone users will immediately switch to another app if they can't quickly get their needs met. And many will also take a negative action. 40% are less likely to come back to a mobile app after they have a negative experience. So I think there's a tension with a lot of our clients where they both see a lot of opportunity to meet clients where they are and provide really great experience on a mobile app, but also a lot of high pressure to get it right.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I mean, I know personally, like if I have a slow, like, one of the things that always kills me is like a really slow mobile app, like the start time there when it like I'm opening an app and it's like there's just one thing I want to do really quickly and it takes like 4 or 5 seconds for the app to open. I just like irrationally get frustrated about that. I'm like, I just want to like do this really quickly and it seems like it's taking eternity. So yeah, definitely interesting stuff there. I want to shift into sort of like process around mobile apps. I think maybe to begin here, like how do you all sort of define what makes for a successful mobile experience? Like what are the boxes you're looking to check when a user goes and uses your mobile app? Alex, do you want to maybe start?
Sure. So I want to understand who the user is and I want to understand what their objectives are. What are they using what is this session about? What's their goal? Because if you understand that, then you can remove some of the friction from the flow. Some other elements to kind of think about as people are, using your applications through mobile is, how well does this mobile experience, either is it replacing the experience of the desktop app or the bigger screen kind of experience that they're using? Because sometimes it's not a desktop app, sometimes it's just a web app, right, that they're logging into, but they need a bigger screen for, where more of those features and experiences are exposed than they would be on a smaller screen. That's more kind of curtailed in some ways. So, is this a replacement of that? Can they replicate all of the same experiences in both? Is it a moment where they're double checking things, right? So I find myself in a position where our mobile applications, sometimes when used in conjunction with larger screens, end up increasing retention, right? And so we dig into why is that? Because, if you compare the cohort of people who are using it across multiple devices versus just one, if they're getting their same needs met, you would expect that to be pretty consistent. But the people who are, engaging in multiple different screen sizes to work with these platforms are using them for different things, right? So double checking how many responses they've gotten, double checking to see, an update to a dashboard that they've created. So it's like an enhancing workflow to the existing jobs that they have that they're trying to accomplish. It's not necessarily replicating the full desktop experience. And so for us, it's balancing those different elements and making sure that the engagement is high, that the features and capabilities and elements that we surface in that smaller screen experience has positive NPS, right? I was able to accomplish my task today. And if the answer to that in our exploration in our product management lifecycle is no, then those are things that I would argue we shouldn't put in that experience until we have figured out a way to make sure that it's actually adding value to that customer flow and that customer job. Otherwise, it's going to degrade the perceptions of the company, the product, and ultimately, cause some of the frustrations you both have mentioned. And so that, dings the brand and how they think about it over time.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super interesting and great answer. Mustafa, what about on the Allianz side there? How is Allianz defining what a successful mobile experience is?
As I told before, our sector is very traditional. And our customers are reactive when they are using the application. When they have a car accident or they have a health issue, if they are in the hospital, they are trying to reach us. So in this condition, we have to focus our functionality, not experience first. We have to provide them what they need. So we focus on their needs. And we have lots of user tests and visits to hospitals, car accidents, and we see that they want to do, they want to reach a person, they want to do their job with a mobile application as quick as possible, because they don't have much time in that condition. It's reactive in that perspective. But according to the regulations and according to our sector, we have to take lots of data from the customer about their situation, about their accident, about their past. So it's a very hard, we are in a hard position. We need to take this data and we have to satisfy our customers. So mobile experience is very vital in that perspective. We have to understand our customer. We have to force the regulations and limits of our platforms, and we have to satisfy our customers. Besides this, we are trying to also add value to customers. We are trying to empower them and try to give them extras according to their health and car insurance part. So we are trying to motivate them. And we are trying to be a lifestyle application in terms of health and other insurance parts. So it's hard to motivate and satisfy our customers because they come us when they are wounded. So our sector is very important in that perspective from mobile experiences.
Yeah, that's great. And you, both of you have sort of fed into where I sort of want to go next, which is like, is how do you, when you're building out these mobile experiences, decide, well, one, prioritize what to work on, and then two, Alex, something you've touched on a little bit already is, if you already have an existing web app or website or web portal or whatever, how do you decide what makes it from the web into mobile? And so maybe Alex, since you've kind of talked a bit about that already, you can start, and then Mustafa would love to hear your perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. To support kind of a similar thread that Mustafa surfaced as well, the main way we think about prioritizing what gets built is based on the user jobs and the user needs, right? And so we've got our ideal customer profiles that we balance our investments against, and we prioritize based on what their needs and objectives are. And so then we look at what is the best way to deliver this capability to help them solve for their job, and how frequently are they working across these different screens, and who are all of the different users that fall within that ICP of a customer, and what are their unique needs, right? Because sometimes you have people who have different workflows, right? Someone's creating, someone's reviewing and approving, someone's just getting an update or is being informed when a status changes or when new responses or information comes in. And so really organizing those different needs into a framework for how this platform is going to deliver against them, and being able to let people sort of drive, but also give them a sense for when one experience might be better to solve their need and their objective job than another one, right? So we are not shy about going through and saying, like, look, this experience is enhanced on a bigger screen, right? So like maybe transition to a desktop computer to complete this action, versus really simplifying and making sure that there's either automations or choices that are surfaced in a slightly different way through the mobile version of these experiences to help streamline what that flow looks like. Maybe, looking at what they've done the last few times and adopting some of those elements and asking whether they want to do something similar this time around, right? So really focusing on who is your target user or ICP, what are the different personas within that are using the app, and what are their objectives and needs, and which tool is best positioned to do that. And then systematically over time validating, right? Because I think there's a lot of maybe tools that aren't used as frequently as they could be used in the UX space, right? Where we now have tools where we can surface touch points and ask questions within the experience. And we don't have to ask 100% of our users, but we can ask a small subset to get a good read on, were you able to accomplish the task that you came here for? And how would you rate that experience? Or, what is the NPS of this particular subset of a tool? Or even how much friction or effort, customer effort score is another good one, right? How much effort did you experience in this flow? And those indicators can help you understand whether that flow or that job that they're trying to do across this experience needs help. Do you need to go do another rev on design? Do you need to decide that it actually isn't best placed to do it on a smaller screen and it needs to be done on a bigger screen? What are those different decision points that you need to make as an organization to either enhance that flow, remove it from a certain screen size or a certain experience, or just generally shift how you're thinking about it if there's different ways to improve it. And I think staying in lockstep with those customers and those users and making sure you're getting that consistent feedback across their needs is critical to creating any good experiences, but especially within the mobile flow.
Yeah. Mustafa, I saw you nodding along a lot there. Do you see similar things at Allianz?
Yes, I can say we have the similar things. We are focusing on user needs, and while prioritization, we began to think according to our users. What I mean is, we want our users do whatever they need from our application. As I told, our sector is very traditional, and we are in the last 2 years, we focused on operational efficiency. What I mean operational efficiency is from migrating operational channels to self-service channels. This is our main objective for last 2 years. From agency perspective, we are our penetration rate is 90%. Whatever our users can do in agency, they can do in our mobile app like 90%. And in that perspective, we almost finish our operational migration from agency side to mobile and web channels. In that perspective, we have to be focusing on error handling features and focusing on continuous improvement and continuous service availability. So we are prioritizing also technological investments in that perspective. From users perspective and the technological perspective, we must be aware that we must be online all the time. They want to reach us from 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week. So we have to be operational excellence in that perspective. So from our users part, we migrate every function set to mobile. And we are trying to give the best experience, technological experience in their life. So our company's perspective, these are the strategic KPIs that we are following last 2 years. But from now on, we are changing our focus because we finished the penetration of the functions in our application. We are focusing on usability scores in app ratings and as mentioned before, NPS and voice of the customer ratings are very important right now for us. That's why we organize a team working especially for user tests because we want to keep what users feel during their experience in our channels, mobile channels, web channels, and we are trying to reach the NPS scores that our global targets are. These will be the main objectives. Next 3 years, we are trying to enhance usability scores. We will be trying to motivate our users to come and use our mobile platforms.
Great. Yeah, I love all the talk about NPS and effort scores and whatnot. I definitely want to talk about that in a minute. But I think generally, would both of you say that it sounds like when it comes to sort of designing for mobile, your approach is sort of start with the, I guess, prescriptive workflows, like we know that the user is coming in and wants to accomplish X. Let's make sure they can do that as quickly and as easily as possible first. And then once you've really nailed that, then you can sort of expand into, like, I guess, more of a like discovery phase. Is that accurate?
Yes, that definitely. That's what I want to say.
Got it. Alex, I see you nodding along. You're on the same
Yeah,
page
I
there.
agree. Yeah, absolutely. You have to land some of those key moments that you know they're coming to you for before you start to, I think, break out of that creative box in some ways.
Yeah, got it. Amanda, anything you've seen from LogRocket customers? Are they taking similar approaches?
Yeah, definitely. I think I appreciate that both Alex and Mustafa mentioned thinking about workflows in the app, monitoring those, and even thinking about mobile apps, not just in the experiences that you provide, but the experience for you as a company, thinking about what tools you can add that will support your business needs. There's NPS and feedback tooling. Many companies also use a monitoring system. Obviously, I speak to LogRocket users for visibility and transparency. For example, I know both an auction site and an insurance client who use us to validate legal complaints. If a client says that they didn't click buy at that price, or they swear they didn't click that button, they can validate that that did in fact happen, which is also important for keeping your company running against challenges.
Got it. Yeah, and I think that's a great segue to actually something, Alex, you mentioned right at the beginning here, and that's that, like, there's sort of a balance you have to strike between the things that your users and your customers want to do and the things that you as a business want them to do and the things that they need to do to kind of keep the business moving forward. How do you sort of walk that line and find the right balance between the two?
Yeah, I think this is a little bit related to what Mustafa was talking about. So before I joined kind of this B2B experience, I was working in a B2C space. So I worked at DirecTV, where people were using the mobile experience in ways that were a little bit different than how they were experiencing the website or the set-top box and those kinds of things, right? Like finding content to watch, adding that content to a list, and having those things then pushed to their set-top box so that they could actually find that content. Same thing. I also have worked in an insurance organization at Farmers Insurance, and very similar element where we were redoing the entire, logged in experience, of which some subsets of that would be available through mobile. And I think it's interesting because it's a very kind of balanced push-pull, right? You're trying to get customers to learn new behaviors, to accomplish their goals more quickly and easily. And, when they're using their set-top box and trying to find content and doing some of those elements, they have their phone more readily available than they have their computer, right? Their computer might be in a different room. They might not want to lug a laptop, even if they do have a laptop, over into the same space. Like, it's much easier to just do something within an application on your phone or even on a mobile web, right? And so removing friction from that, understanding when those touch points happen, and also pushing for some of it, right? So like you can guide people. And I also think that that's another opportunity that I think is a little bit of a lost art that we may be able to kind of go back and borrow from some of these consumer experiences where, now I think it's more prevalent, where it's like, oh, we need you, if you want to pair this TV with some service that you have to log in through your phone, right? There's like these interaction points that the business needs you to validate who you are, so that they're not losing money, so that you're not sharing accounts, so that you're, your security, your privacy is being protected as well. So there are some consumer benefits, but let's be honest, most of the benefits are financial for the business. And so really balancing, is this mission critical? Is this something that the customer wants or that the business absolutely needs? And also balancing, what is the potential financial implication if these things aren't created or don't happen? I think those things are also important, right? Because a lot of these investments that we make are being balanced against other opportunities, right? Everyone's looking to increase retention, increase growth, increase engagement, drive up pricing and AOVs and, account signups for, different revenue tiers, etc. And when you're doing that, each thing that you're prioritizing, whether it's mobile or not, is being balanced against the other opportunities that exist. And so I find that it's harder almost in some ways to get the customer facing needs met through the mobile experiences as a priority than it is to solve for some of the company driven needs that are going to protect that revenue, like those validation, signing on authentication kinds of experiences that actually add friction to the experience for the customer, but reduce the likelihood that you're letting kind of money slip through the cracks by people sharing or being bad actors essentially within the ecosystem that you're nurturing and sponsoring and engaging with and growing over time. So I almost think it's like finding that balance between what is the financial benefit and what is that experiential and retention focused benefit that if you invest a little bit more in what the customers actually want to be able to use those tools for, you might still very well impact that bottom line, but from more being pulled in that direction by customers rather than you pushing your point of view or your needs or your business context onto them. But not saying that that's, something you can avoid, because those are standards within the business world that we need to grapple with.
Yeah, a delicate balancing act for sure. And I think that, you talking about sort of the opportunity cost there is really interesting as well. It's like, yeah, we could do this, but there are also a dozen other things that we could maybe do. And what are we sacrificing by not, like, what are we not doing if we do this? And so, yeah, definitely a tough question to answer there. Mustafa, do you run into similar things at Allianz?
Yeah, of course. We are in a capitalist world, so we have to think our company's main focus. We have to generate revenues. That's our main focus. And the other focus is cost reduction. These are the main drivers of mobile applications and technological investments. We have to be aware of that. Of course, we are doing for our customers in that perspective. We never forget it, but according to your company's life cycle, you have to decide what to do in the first space. If you are making this digital transformation in early stages, you have to reach your customers and satisfy them with their needs with the function sets. So you must focus on technological migration from traditional channels to mobile channels and web channels. That's your main focus. If you are in the second phase of your digital transformation, then you can focus on engagement and retention. It means that you spend more time on user experience, user testings, NPS, and other scores, and you can prioritize this kind of demands according to their revenue generation and customer perspective. And if you are in the third phase of your digitalization, then you can focus on loyalty and advocacy in that perspective. You have to be more customer oriented, and you have to make prioritization according to your customers. When I was talking about Allianz Turkey, we are in the second phase right now. We almost finished the first phase. We reach our customer base. We migrate our traditional channels to mobile channels, and we are now focusing on the engagement and retention part. But also we are thinking in the third phase about loyalty and the advocacy part. So now on, we will be more focusing on about experiences, about service design of our function sets, and technological availability in that perspective.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, you talking about sort of thinking about where you as a business are contextually is super interesting. And we could probably spend an entire hour just talking about sort of what those phases are and how you move from one to the next. But do want to make sure we kind of cover everything today. So I kind of want to move into sort of the final area here, which is measuring success. So we've talked about why mobile is important, and we talked about your approaches to mobile and creating good experiences. But then, how do you go about and measure that those experiences that you're creating are actually successful? Mustafa, do you want to start on this one?
Yes, we are talking about KPIs right now. As I told before, there are different phases about your company or about your sector. We follow three different KPIs right now in our organization. These are the business strategic KPIs that are related to our customer base, that generate new users, and that generates revenue in that perspective. This is the main area about the product analytics. We have to understand where our revenue come from, and we have to follow the funnels in our user base, and we have to know our users. In that perspective, we have to focus on our personas. So it's from the product analytics part. Also, we have to be focusing on delivery KPIs. These are the error tracking issues, usability issues, and UX analytics part. In that perspective, we have to follow errors, bugs, service quality issues, and crash rates in the incident tracking in that perspective. And the last part, we are focusing on experience KPIs. In that perspective, we have to understand what our users experience during their life cycle in our app. So we have to be focusing on funnel analysis. Also, we need some usability functions like eye tracking and other click maps. So in that perspective, we have to focus these three areas. I can summarize. These are strategic KPIs that generates value to our company. Some delivery KPIs that are our daily business, that are related to our daily business, and some experience KPIs. These are related to our customers.
Great. Yeah, I think that's great to really sort of break it down like that and say, hey, we know there are the things that matter to the business. Let's figure out what to measure here. There are the things that matter technically, is obviously with an app, right? There's a lot going on behind the scenes. So you want to keep track of that, and then ultimately that experience thing as well. And I think it's sort of the combination of everything. So I think that's a really great way to think about it. Alex, I know you talked about NPS being really important a couple times. Anything else or anything more to sort of expand upon around NPS and why that's sort of a primary driver of how you measure success?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that NPS is a helpful leading indicator for retention, right? And if it's executed well, you can leverage it to figure out where the opportunities within your organization lie, right? So you have the macro level NPS, which is your general assessment of how likely someone is to actually recommend your company or your solution as a whole, which isn't just your product, right? It's your brand, it's your services, it's your pricing, it's your support process, it's end to end, the entire kind of experience that your product or brand is evoking in other people. And then hopefully underneath that, or in addition to that, I should say, you have channel specific context in which you are getting feedback as well, right? So in an insurance context, right, you might get a general sense for a customer of a Farmers Insurance, or in a pay TV world, you might get a general sense for something like DirecTV. And then as people experience different use cases and different needs, like for instance, you have a claim, right? At that point, you would get a transactional assessment of your satisfaction with the process of that claim and the tools that you were able to use to accomplish that claim. And that is different, right? Because people could go 10 years without ever experiencing a claim situation. So they would not have experienced that subset of tools. And so I think it's important to look at it in a macro way and to get a sense for how each of these different elements are either contributing positively to your NPS or negatively to your NPS. I think it's also helpful to look at it over time, right? Because I think if we look at things in one particular point in time, it's really hard for a lot of products to make the case that mobile is where we should be spending a ton of our resources, right? Because usually the number of users for a mobile experience are lower than the number of users for a larger screen experience or a desktop experience. But that number has been eroding for a long period of time, right? It used 5 years ago, it was a bigger difference than it is today, and it's continuing to decrease. And in certain markets, especially, mobile is the primary, and you actually find significantly fewer people using desktop applications or larger screens to do the things that they need to do. And so in addition to assessing where you are today and having KPIs and metrics tied to where you are today and comparing those, I think there's also, it behooves you as an organization to look at these things over time, because I think if you look at them over time, it gives you a better case for investing in a mobile experience, investing in how the world is changing and future-proofing your product and your company and the experiences for the customer that you're curating. And it makes it a little bit harder to argue with as a leadership team when someone is surfacing these ideas or these suggestions or these priorities. And that kind of ties to the Q&A question that was asked around how do you get C-suite buy-in to mobile for a strategic investment. It's these kinds of macro trends. It surfaces around, are people who are engaging in mobile more likely to retain than customers who are not? Is there some unique value the mobile is bringing, or is the general trend helping you kind of tell a story that this is a place we need to invest, or we're going to find ourselves behind the 8 ball? I think another place to look as well is in competitive intel, right? Because a lot of the things that organizations do is to make sure that they have that competitive edge, looking at what other companies are doing, and not just within your competitive set directly, right? But like industry wide, where are people going? How are they investing in mobile experiences? And how are they kind of creating these flows and making those cases? Because I think that too often we look at just at our direct competitive set rather than looking at more broad trajectories of where customer experiences are going. And we can be inspired by things that aren't directly within our key kind of product competitive space.
That's great. And yeah, I do want to save a few minutes for Q&A. So I think this is a good time to do a reminder, if anyone listening in, if you do have questions, we've had some come in already, but if you have more that you want answered, we are going to spend a couple minutes in just a minute or two talking about them. So please do use the Q&A functionality. I think really quickly before we do get to that, Amanda, I just want to maybe wrap up with you. We've covered a lot of different ways to measure goals and measure success. Anything you want to add from the LogRocket customers that you've worked with?
Yeah. Well, first, great answers from Alex and Mustafa, just to build off of both of them. As Alex said, for convincing stakeholders, I think data is just really everything. And you can get creative with how you make your case with data. If you don't have users yet because you're a new startup, you can still use industry data and interview people about what they would buy and have them move through mock-ups. So all sorts of ways to get data to really make that case. And then first, a successful mobile app. Mustafa really touched on these different areas. What I hear from clients is they're looking at performance, they're looking at conversion on key metrics, and visibility into client experience, especially issues. Like I said at the start of this call, issues can make a huge dent in how your users interact with your brand. For performance monitoring with apps, the highest order is always app crashes. It happens too often, and that's always clients' #1 concern. As well as they can monitor network failures, CPU load, memory usage, even incidents of error messages appearing on the screen. These are great things to keep an eye on. And something I also hear a lot is monitoring conversion funnels, so you can quickly identify and triage any dips in your key KPIs. Obviously, we work with a lot of large retailers where checkout conversion would be the key, but whatever your product is, daily active users, people clicking on a button that you really want them to click on because that means they're converting, are really the lifeblood to keep an eye on. And then, of course, using a tool for visibility and transparency for support needs. If all else fails, being able to quickly understand what a user went through and make the determination between user error, which can be really good product insight, and technical issues, which you also might want to take a look at.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think it is really all kind of contextual and thinking about, what do you want your users to accomplish? What do you want to accomplish as a business, and thinking through it through that lens. So yeah, we'll spend a couple minutes on question and answer here before I wrap up. So yeah, we'll say last call for questions. If you do have any, there's a Q&A functionality at the bottom of your Zoom window. We do have one that's come in, and Alex already talked to it a little bit, but the question is around, how do you get buy-in, right, at the leadership or the C-suite level to really go for a mobile first strategic investment? Mustafa, do you want to maybe talk about Allianz's approach there?
Yeah, of course. I was reading the question. It's a great question. About digital transformation, it's a little bit hard to answer this question, because if the strategy comes from the top down, the employees don't accept the strategy. If it is come from bottom up, it's hard to convince the leadership. So it must be from both sides. Right now, one of our initiatives in Allianz is changing the people's minds and culture. If you believe in the digital transformation, and if you see the big picture from changing from traditional channels to digital channels, you have to convince your colleagues. If you believe this mobile first approach changes strategy, if you believe this one, then you can easily convince leadership by not only words, by actions. You have to provide them data, resources, external resources, ROI projections, every data you have in your hand. You have to use them for convincing leadership. By that way, you have to think global. You have to see the 5 years from now on, but you must have small actions. So in that perspective, in Allianz, we have a motto: think global, act local. That means we have a global strategy for making this digital transformation, but we are making actions locally in our efficient part. We are moving step by step. We are doing best practices in digitalization of our traditional channels, digitalization in mobile app, digitalization of our call centers. So we have these best practices making us to convince our leadership day by day. But we are moving step by step. You must have this digital migration strategy in your path. You have to see what next move is. You have to plan everything, but you must have small steps in every move, I can say.
Great. Yeah, no, that's an awesome answer. I think maybe just quickly before we wrap up, Alex or Amanda, anything more to add there? I think we've covered it pretty comprehensively, but yeah, any sort of closing thoughts on that?
Just that I love Mustafa's answer. That was awesome. And also kind of thinking through that cultural piece of it is so critical and so important, right? Because the team has to align that this is a priority, and then you have to double down on that. That should surface in how you are doing the work, right, to accomplish each of these goals. And if that's not surfacing in those places, then it's really hard to say that you've got a mobile first strategy or that you're really leaning into the digital transformation. Because that's what I've kind of seen is like there will be a theme around digital transformation or mobile first, but then you're still seeing so many elements come through that haven't been worked through that lens. And I think that that's fine, because there's some element of your transitioning, right? And some of this is work that's been going on and you're just needing to close the loop on it. But at some point, there does need to be some operational, some process related lines in the sand drawn that you are intentionally going to validate these experiences on the mobile flow to make sure that they meet minimum criteria needs or whatever that is. And you have to actually say no to things if they don't feed that strategy, if they don't meet the criteria, the qualifications of that strategy. And that discipline is sometimes hard for organizations to fully adapt to, but it's incredibly important for mobile strategies.
Great. Awesome. Well, I think that is a really perfect note to end on. Alex, Mustafa, Amanda, thank you so much for chatting today. I've learned a lot, at the very least. Everyone on the line, thank you for joining us as well. As I mentioned at the top, we will be sending out a recording within about 24 hours or so, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And yeah, hope to see everyone on another LogRocket webinar soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. See you.
Bye.
Bye.